Coming up next, we have panel discussion that is on transforming customer experience, optimizing personalization strategies. So something very deep coming your way. And now I would request our session chair, Mr. Shiv Acharji, AVP Business and Communication Planning. Hi, sir. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us. Mr. Puneet Chahar, Asia Head of Digital Performance Marketing, OLX Autos. Hi, sir. Then we have amongst us Devanshu Bhatia, Head of Marketing, Oberoi Group. Snigdha Suman, Head of Marketing, Yvonne. Can we have a round of applause for our panelists, please? Joining us for this panel discussion, we have with us Vartika Verma, Senior Director, Marketing, GupShup. Hi, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us here.
So what is it, women versus men?
Now I would request Mr. Shiv to please take over the session. Thank you so much.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Shiv. I'm from Interactive News, part of IPG Group. First of all, thank you everyone, for joining this panel. I think before we, start, if you look at India, India is a very, culturally very rooted with the topic. What we are going to talk about is personalization. And the reason why we have chosen this topic is because of the changes which we are seeing right now. So we were very rooted when we bought any product in the moms and pop shops back in those days. And our parents or even today when we go and buy anything for our kids, what actually happens is that there is a sense of rapport which everyone wants. And the tech actually what it did is actually enabled to do that personalization, enabled it at a mass level right now. And today what we are seeing is those shifts are happening where people are moving towards subscription media. There is already a looming obstacle of cookie deprecation. We are seeing data privacy as one of the key concerns. So within this space, when we look at personalization and optimizing it, for customer experiences, data somewhere sits at the heart of it. And I think from there we should start off that how do you see, Puneet? Yeah, I think there is a lot of data which comes in play for OLX, not only at an India level, but globally, you are doing a lot of personalization is happening. So tell us, what are the key challenges or what is the structure of the data within in your organization? What are the steps you are taking to handle those data collection plus also the unification of the data which an organization wants?
Yeah, so I'll pick a thread from the previous discussion. It was mentioned with data it enables a lot of things, not only the personalization but also the attribution of whatever activities you are doing in marketing. However, data collection is not the issue. Availability of data is not the issue. As per one survey, more than 70% of the data is unused with the organizations. So it is more about how to enable that data. And one of the key challenge that organizations face is the unification of that data. So there is data, your advertising data in your advertising platforms, the Google, Facebooks of the world. Then you have your CRM data, then a lot of data sets are there. Now question is how to unify data, the data and create, that one view of, the customer so that you can intersect at the right moment and give that experience to the customer. So I think one is that. Another is how many of the organizations have the data framework and data governance framework ready with them. So that is one of the areas, how to collect data, how to store data, and then how to process that data. So the framework, is one of the starting point, I would say, in order to move in that direction. And then lastly, like you pointed out, so the DPDP bill is coming in India. In Europe, we already have the GDPR. So you cannot just collect the data the way we are doing it now. And then there is like the third-party cookies also going away. So you have the privacy bill, then you have the third-party cookies. So you will be relying on the first-party data. You will be collecting that data, but with consent. So then compliance and consent management is also coming to be one of the challenges for the industry.
Right. So if I understand you correctly, what exactly you're saying is unification is the more consequential process within in this data business. But interestingly, what we have seen as advertisers and marketers is that it becomes a conversation about tools. But do you think that there should be more focus towards how we unify the data? Because organizations need to rally behind looking at data not only at a product level, marketing level, at a service level, at a CRM level, at a loyalty level. And then we look at who all are there. We should get that initial internal sponsorship of the data before moving forward.
Yeah. So see, obviously externally and tool-wise, from tooling perspective, so you have a different framework. It started with data warehousing, then the data lakes came into the picture, and now the data fabric is there. Right. So from tooling perspective, I think you can have the tools, but again, you need the internal people aligned. Right. Because it is end of the day investment. Also, you need to have the resources also aligned. Most of the time, what I have, experienced, it is more about, lack of resources also, even if you have the tools, but there are no people who can process that data and utilize that data.
Right. I think the next thing which we want to talk about it once we have looked into it, what actually we do with it. And one of the first thing which comes out is this customer data. How do we look at in terms of segmentation of this data itself so that we use this relevant customer data in a certain way to create maximum value? Devanshu, you would want to make some points how you have done it, because data collection is certainly not a problem from your business standpoint. But how do you divide those data segments? What is the methodology you follow? Would you like to bring some light?
Yeah, sure. So, I think since generations, I would say, there has been a very, very clear set of identification of who the target audience is and how do we reach out to them. If I go back to the days of, Valmiki's and the Mahabharata, the students who were going to every colony and say Bhikshami Dehi, they knew exactly kin gharo mein jana. And of course I wasn't there, it's just my hypothesis. And reach out and say कि इस घर में तो मुझे अच्छा खाना मिलता है, so I'll reach out to that person. इस घर में मेरे को, अच्छे grains मिलते हैं. I wonder if they're non-vegetarians or not. And basis on that, they've done the segmentation, right? Cutthroat, we are sitting in 2023, and what my friend made a very valid point is, everybody is running after that whole data. Today when you take an interview of a new candidate, the moment he opens his mouth and says, I can, do AI ML, I can fly rockets with your data, you hire him immediately thinking कि ये तो जादू कर देगा मेरी company में. But the reality is, with the various other issues which are very agnostic of the industry, agnostic of the company, more dependent on the working, you get set. Luckily, in the hospitality space, which we were talking earlier, to a degree, the government has mandated that everybody who's checking in, you have to get his information. So the first set, has been given to us on a silver spoon. How, as an organization, as a team, we have been lucky is set various journeys, set various trigger points to come at the right moment, at the right time, in front of the user, in his journey, whether when he's booking a hotel room, whether he's experiencing the property, and after his experience with the property. So at a very macro level, if I was to talk about the segments, considering today the usage is dependent on whether you are going for business travel or you're going for leisure travel. So that's one segment that we have broken it into. Demographics play a very, very important role. We are working with some of the agents, some of the industry pioneers to also build in some neural network and machine learning programs to make a lot of churn models and resort recommendation models, which also run on these segments. I think if I was to put it in layman's language, if I have been staying in a property A, how high the propensity is for me to look at a property B. And once your name features in that model that this team runs for us, we will reach out to you as an independent segment. And then the regular, double income, double kids, no kids, single, solo traveler, rise of, solo women traveler, etc. Those segments then follow. So broadly, these are how we operate.
Right. It is interesting that the real magic only happens after this, because we have done most of the exercise in terms of collecting the data, unifying the data, cutting it to find the place where we want to make the maximum amount of, which can draw business outcome for us. So Vartika, the question to you would be that how do you see, and I think there is a lot of interesting work which you're doing at Gupshup as well, how technology is fueling, and specifically AI and ML, doing those communication, personalizing those communication, and doing those consumer engagement.
Sure. So, if you look at personalization, segmentation, I think these have been themes that have been there since forever. I think audience generation, when it launched on LinkedIn or Facebook, it's all towards that same theme. And to look at, what's changed in the last 5 months, I would say, is that even if you don't have data, there's a large language model which would know more about your business than you could hire 10 people to, talk about. Now the challenge there is, how can you make it yours, ethical, and to your own company's knowledge base. So, what the work that we're doing for some of the brands in hospitality, F&B, BFSI, and not just in India, across 60 countries, involves, a lot of building of these campaigns, like the CDP part. So how do we get more personal information, PII data? How do we use it for building these automatic segments and campaigns so that, you can run your campaigns in cohorts and, take the insights out that, hey, this is what works, offers works, or, more of seasonal warm greetings work. And, rather than you wasting or investing time in really building those campaigns, I think automation can do that for you. And the other way that marketers are now looking at, also using AI is to self-serve the entire journey. So one is content creation, the other one is, around campaigning, and then about self-serving entire journeys, right from, pre-purchase to purchase to even post-purchase. Because if you look at CX, it is whose mandate is it? Is it the customer support person's mandate? Is it the marketer's mandate? Or are these roles sort of becoming one? And that is why you need to look at the entire customer lifecycle journey, not just up to the purchase, but even the post-purchase. So that's where we've seen a lot of interesting journeys about emerge for, let's say, click to WhatsApp. So we've done something interesting with Maggie during Ramadan in Nigeria, wherein people would click on a Facebook recipe ad and directly come onto WhatsApp, get videos about how to make Maggie, how to make Ramadan more special. Now it's not transactional, and why is Nestle investing on it? Is because they're getting information about their customers. They're probably understanding, hey, do they want mixtures in their mixed kind of flavors, or do they want the age-old Maggie? So a lot of these things could be about driving product insights, driving commerce, driving customer engagement, repeat purchase, and so on. So I would say those are some of the very basic, interesting ways. And then with the launch of GPT-3, like just last month, we launched our Autobot Builder. And it's an old product already. Now we're working on turbo models in GPT-4. So the pace at which the entire industry is moving, like before we could even sign on the dotted line with one of our customers, something else is out there. So I think in terms of the next 6 to 8 months could be very defining for how marketers really use it, and especially both these things in parallel: the entire shift towards cookie-less environment, and the whole shift towards users initiating conversations to actually give consent for their PII data records. I think that's where we would probably see a lot of the good CX happen, not the mass bombarding or the mass personalized bombarding, but more user-initiated and context-driven conversations. And ultimately there, I think as a channel, I would say in India, WhatsApp is the biggest channel. So we've launched bots for companies across 5, 6, 7 multi-channels. And there also, I think the uptake for WhatsApp has been about 90-98%. In Southeast Asia, WhatsApp is replaced by Viber, and also in some cases Facebook Messenger for Southeast Asia. But I would say messaging is the main channel on all, on which all this magic is happening. You can campaign, you can segment, you can do all the good stuff, but the delivery and the two-way conversational engagement is happening on these new age channels.
It's very interesting because earlier, one of the core thing which happens within marketing, one is the push and the pull. And I think there's a very excellent piece which is running through AI and ML. We were always thought that the idea of using certain modeling to reach out to finding a better audience, but that is an interesting way to put out that how the technology could be used to create that pull marketing, and do those consumer engagement. So moving beyond that, Snigdha, I was deeply inspired by the mission of Avon, what is doing as for women, not from, and it's not new, but it's quite an old, and you gave us a great legacy of Avon as a brand. And the business itself is going through a certain transition of how a direct selling is getting digitized, but also you're looking at the modern way of D2C, of you selling your products on the native side. So would you like to give us an understanding of that journey of how you are in that business of customizing the offerings to the beauty intenders through your the strong network which you have built at a physical, at a one-on-one level, but also at a D2C level as well?
Thanks, Shiv. So as I was mentioning, Avon being one of the oldest D2C channel where, women actually, so there are two things, especially for Avon, that has to be taken in account when we're talking about personalizing this kind of one, cosmetics, that itself something that, women need recommendation. And even at this age, when there is so much of tech and there's so much of recommendation that keeps throwing itself, you pick up one lipstick and 4 lipstick shades will just, feature in front of you. You can try this, you can try that. However, there is still something that women need to know from a friend or from a family, that whether this looks good on me or not. So one is that, and secondly, the channel of building this network. So when Avon tried to put this together, and for 137 years, when Avon has been building this network of direct to consumers, it is very, very personal. And the whole network works when I know somebody and I go to that person and say, hey, you know what, you are wearing an amazing jewelry, you know what, there is another one that I can show you. So one is on product recommendation, and how, when Avon started, I would say, becoming a little aged in terms of the traditional way of selling, and people were looking for a newer way of, they were probably trying to go away from the traditional way of network marketing. I think that is where the tech came in. However, it's not 100% of tech that still works. You still need a human intervention. So what we are trying to do is have this woman who is part of the Avon network, however, give her the tool to make her selling a little more, I would say, tech-oriented, where she can recommend her set of buyers through this app or through this kind of a virtual try-on. So she can create her own shop. Looking at my consumer, I have a smaller shop on my website where I go pick up my product and then send that recommendation to her. She can make her product selection and send it back to me. So we are trying to capture the essence of direct selling, however, also bringing in the concept of making it more personal through the tech route. So that is the journey that I think the brand is going through, however, still keeping human an integral part of the whole personalization of the category.
Right. Interesting story, and it really sits out of from where the personalization could be the oldest case of personalization itself at a commercial level, if I look at it, if that's Avon's story. So what we have heard so far, just to conclude the points, is, and I'll come back with a googly one, the last one. So we talked about data collection and unification of the data, which is important. We spoke about how that data could be used in and related to the business outcomes based on the way our business, the entire revenue structure is identified, and how can you put different customer data which can create a maximum value for us. The third thing is how the technology could be used to create that engagement. And lastly, when we are looking at technology and the personalization as a tool, how we can customize the offerings. Either we can do it backed by the data, or whether it could be relayed through the data itself. But the last is when we look at customer experience, the last time I thought about, and I'll give a very recent experience, I was talking about Switzerland with my wife, and all of a sudden, 2 days after, I started getting all the great train journeys of the recent campaign with Roger Federer right on my screen, and I've been seeing that one. The great ad, great campaign, but certainly it strikes a conversation that if someone is listening. So I'm pretty sure that everyone must have, encountered those, are they listening to me? So where this balance of personalization, even Byron Sharp says that there is, and in his book, How Brands Can Grow, that is hyper-personalization could be a counter-intuitive exercise itself. So what are your thoughts? Each one of you could let us know, and we conclude this session, of how you see the balance of personalization and the ethical aspect of the consideration of us as a marketers or advertisers.
Yeah, so I think it is a great point that you have brought. Let me share something similar. How many of the users who use, say, Netflix have additional profile created, and from that profile they do not see anything, they do not watch any movie or any series, just because they want unfiltered, unpersonalized experience and explore things there. At least I do that. I was in a room with marketeers 2 days back, and I shared this experience, and at least 50% of them said, yes, I do that. So that is, where, the good question of, the where to balance it out. Obviously, we need to give that experience, using personalization, but at the same time, how much of it? So yeah, world will move, there. And now we are talking about, the AI, ML, everything. And I ask myself a question, and I ask this question, to audiences as well. AI is the cake or the cherry on the cake? So think and ask yourself, today AI is the cake or the cherry on the cake? So if you think it is the cake, then you are going to miss it, because it is not. At least today it is not. So treat it as what it is. Because once you have the basics, once you have the cake, then only you can put the cherry.
Devanshu, in your space, similar sentiment is managing the sentiment of a customer is very important, and what we spoke about is the balance of advertising, marketing, and at the same point of time, not being that one someone is listening. So would you like to bring some points of how you see it and how do you, what are your thoughts?
No, I think in the first go, it is very important to have that sweet point, right? If the room is full of people who play cricket, you know that bat के ऊपर वाले हिस्से पे ball लगेगी, तो you'll get a jerk in your hand. नीचे वाले में लगेगी, तो again you'll break the bat or your wrist, and the middle section is the sweet point. Now, what is that sweet point? I think, as every advertiser, as every marketer, is what we are trying to crack. I can't hold myself, but to give you this another insight, we were talking. So, as a hospitality field, I went once, and what we are proud of, the personalization part is somebody not calling me, sir, please come and have a seat here. Personalization to an extent that Mr. Bhatia, come and sit here. I was very happy with it. The second level of personalization, I realized that I'm allergic to shellfish. So the menu, the fixed menu, did not have anything in shellfish. The third level of personalization was maybe, in my bed, I have a neck issue, so they had kept a hard pillow, right? Excellent. That is also something very important. Now, to what extent do you go? Now, I like warm bed. Does that mean that somebody will be lying in my bed as a personalization factor before I enter? Pata laga, the first thing I enter, there's somebody in my bed, sir, you like warm bed, so this is personalization. So, or, there are umpteen such examples. So, I think we face that issue, not the bed issue. But the issue that we faced was that when we were maintaining profiles of our guests, now somebody had requested for so typically every hotels, no matter which hotel it is, they would give you a disposable razor. Now this one HNI, he came to our hotel and he said, listen, I don't like these plastic razors. Can you please get me a nice razor, the non-throwable 5-blade kind of a fancy razor. Now the reason was that for that particular trip he had forgotten to carry it. Unfortunately or fortunately, the way at that point of time we were maintaining systems, this went in this record that this particular guest prefers whatever razor that was, let's say a Gillette Mac 5 or whatever it was, with a small bottle of shaving foam. And he was a regular guest. So what happened was that if he was making, let's say, 30 trips in a quarter, he ended up getting 30 such blades and those small bottles of foam, which was hampering the experience because this was not personalization anymore, right? Also an expense to the hotel, because whether it was 1,000, 1,500, whatever it was, it at some level depleted the efficiency by 1,500 rupee. So, and that again the sweet point example of how you need to be idiot proof, how you need to ensure that you're at the right spot. From an advertising perspective, while I do understand, and I think he mentioned about the third-party apps also getting redundant, and you do know that first-party apps are coming closer, I think it's a trajectory which everybody has started taking. We ourselves as a group are planning to migrate to various CDPs, where we start building our own base to reach out to the right people in the right manner, and find that happy medium together.
Very nice to hear, and the example which you quoted, I would remember that. Over to Snigdha. What you want to conclude points with the last one.
So as I said, the category that we deal with, beauty, is definitely something that people like to get personalized. However, there are categories where people would still want to experiment, and that is why the whole concept of surprise bags and surprise kits, where they don't know what you're getting, but you just, we call it a lucky bag. So we'll just say that you'll get a bag mix of some 5 products, and it could be a price value of 1,000 or whatever. And that excites people because they don't know what they're getting, but they're just thinking that they will get something that they might like. So categories like skin or hair definitely needs more personalization, and they don't want to experiment there. But there are categories where people love to experiment because I think that breaks the monotony, and not always, as you said, that you want somebody to be just pushing the same thing over and over again. So I think it's again a balance, whether it is tech and human balance, whether it is, then we can come to chatbot, where do you get the human interaction there, or when I'm talking about the whole network marketing, where tech enables the network marketer or this person to talk to her consumer or his consumer. So it's always the balance. Nothing in extreme or can help any of the brands.
Vatika.
Thanks. I think I have some very different viewpoints as well on the personalization aspect. But before that, I think a lot of marketers are moving towards, again, user-initiated kind of conversations where we, create a platform for them to come and engage, and then, create in-moment, memorable journeys to them, to initiate the conversation. So I would say, moving more towards that would enable, the difference between spookiness versus personalizedness. And then, with respect to the other thing, like, there's also been a very big increase in a lot of people shopping in incognito, or watching things as, as we talked about on Netflix. It means that, over personalization also people don't want, because that kills the entire freedom of exploring something. So, give people the space as well. I know, if somebody's looking for black shoes, you want to make that sale. But figure out for your brand, what is that threshold? Is it after third time also? If people are not buying, stop it then. Move on, let them discover something else. The second cool thing that I'm going to tell you about personalization is something that we found, working with the BFSI segment and also retail e-commerce, is that people actually don't want to get too much advice from another human being. So they are actually more comfortable asking, an AI agent, and that's where, if you remember 3 years back, people were having very human-like names for bots, as if it's a human you're talking to. But now look at it, it's all like cartoonish names, because people do want to make the difference that you're not talking to a human, you're talking to an AI-enabled bot, which is semi-intelligent, and hey, if you need more assistance, I can connect you with my human friends. So I would say there, in terms of recoveries for payments for BFSI sector, a bot does better. A voice bot reminder does better, because you don't want to, it's embarrassing for you to hear from a human that you've not made your payment. The other thing, like, let's say for Oriflame, we're working on something with ChatGPT. Nobody wants to go to a salon, and I think the women here would agree, and hear that aapka skin kharab ho gaya, ya your haircut is bad. That happens all the time, and that's why people, even for personalization, are somewhere looking at, hey, let a machine tell me, in probably incognito mode, and let me take it from there. So I would say, figure out how much personalization is good and where it's getting spooky. And even though, you might get 1-2% more ROI showing the ad the 9th time, but take a call on, how, if we're really talking about customer experience, for how many people is the experience becoming bad? And, make it lesser. Maybe 3 times you show a message, and if you don't get a response, go to the next.
Thank you. As we conclude this session, we would like any of the inputs from any questions.
Audible? Yeah. So when I really look at the word transformation, it's about creating a dramatic shift. That's what the dictionary meaning is. And the question here is to industries, and Devanshu, perhaps you can answer this. Airline travel has been transformed over the last decade. DIGIXX being the latest, where you seamlessly get into the plane. Whereas if you look at the hospitality sector, you still have to go to the reception for a check-in, signed form or a tab, digital signature, indicate high floor, low floor, queen bed, this bed, that bed, and 10 other things before you actually check in. Why has the industry not really moved as much as one would like it to move in terms of the customer experience on a check-in only? Very simple, which is the most frustrating part of getting entry into a hotel.
So I partially disagree with you in terms of how the movement has happened. So you mentioned DigiYatra, and luckily that was one of the projects I was talking in my previous roles. The GMR group took about 3.5, 4 years to launch that project. But as of today, the adoption is less than 15%. Any such new technology that happens, it takes a lot of years of study and hard work, and then the market is struggle in terms of how the adoption has to increase. If I talk about the hospitality sector per se, back in the days, your technology was just limited to having a nice tablet with which you can control your curtains and your pankha, right? So you would have a button, the day those shears will come down, then you'll have another button, something else will come out. Today, if you look at any of the, and listen, I'm talking broadly from my hotel's perspective, right? If I talk about any of the city hotels of the group, for any of the chains that we have, not only do we have the similar parda and pankha management devices, but also your check-ins, your checkouts, all equipped onto these technologies. Some of the chains like the Four Seasons or the Aman or the Mandarin Oriental or of course our own group, the Oberois, if I look at that, as a first time check-in, the government regulatories do expect you to add on a couple of details, not only in India, even overseas, when you're supposed to enter your passport details. However, when you go for a repeat, those steps are no more valid. You give the basic information, if your details are updated, you straight away go to your room. Until a couple of years back, from a hospitality industry, check-ins into your rooms was only limited to a top-notch 5-star plus kind of a hotel. Now lately what I understand is the 4-star deluxe, the 3-star plus, maybe, I'm not really sure about this one, but even the likes of Oyo rooms have started doing those things. So there are changes that are happening. There are certain changes which are upfront on the face, which we feel are very drastic. There are certain changes which takes time to reflect and come to a day-to-day operations. One last point, key check-in for instance. Up till a couple of years, check-in using a key was the feature which most of the hotels were using. Even that has now translated into mobile apps for many hotels, where you open your app, put in the combination, and you open the door. So these are all technology interventions.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So we have to end our session here. We don't have much time for questions. Can we have a big round of applause for our panelists, please? Thank you so much. That was a brilliant session. Request you to please join us for the photo op.